What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're taking a look at the year 2 and 3 running backs that I have not been taking in drafts and why I don't like them at 3 ADP. First up, we have Achane coming off the board in the early to mid second round, which based off last season is totally fair. As a rookie, nearly 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. Last season, nearly 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. Here's my concern though. As a rookie, highly efficient. We know historically that running backs that see that level of efficiency as a rookie see more volume 100% of the time in year 2. Not 90% of the time, 100% of the time. Running backs are as efficient as he was as a rookie. They see more volume into their second year. I mean, the man was averaging 7.8 yards per carry. He was involved heavily in the receiving game on explosive offense. There was a very real chance we were looking at the next Chris Johnson, and that was something you should be attacking in drafts. The problem is more what happened last year. 4.5 yards per carry is completely fine, but it did feel like they were trying to force him the football, and they expected a lot more big plays than they got. Only 2 running backs were the first read more than 37 times last season. It was Alvin Kamara at 45 and Achane at 53. He also had 10 more design plays in the receiving game than any other running back last season. The volume was insane, but his longest reception was 39 yards. His yards per reception and yards after the catch were middle of the road. His explosive run rate, middle of the road. And the offense as a whole really struggled even when they had Tua at quarterback. I don't know. To me, it feels like they thought he was going to be a cheat code going into the season, and they definitely thought he'd be more of a cheat code than he ended up being, and that they really wanted to just do all of these plays, just getting the ball into his hands, because they thought there'd be like explosive play after explosive play. And I don't think they were super pumped with the results that occurred. And I do think there's a chance they're going to kind of force him the ball a little bit less this season as a result. You also last season had Raheem Mostert looking absolutely cooked. Jalen Wright as a rookie, they just never trusted him. And so Achane was truly all they had. They had no one else that they could kind of, maybe not give him a million touches per game, and they could kind of ease back on that and hope to increase the efficiency. He even got 67% of the carries from inside the 5-yard line. 12 of those carries gained -1 yards. In total, they just had no one else they trusted, so they had to use him everywhere. And I don't think it's like a lock that that's going to change this season. He could still go out there and be a featured running back, but there's for sure a chance that they either trust Jalen Wright more in year 2 or Ollie Gordon steps up. This is actually the first time I've talked about Gordon in a video this season. I do genuinely have concerns that he could take meaningful work. Not that he's going to overtake Achane as the number 1 running back. Not that it's even going to be like a 1A, 1B. But remember, Achane was a featured running back last season. He was used heavily in all areas of the game. Gordon's 6'1", 226 pounds, and is an absolute bowling ball. He should 100% be their goal line back. I can promise you he's faster than his 4.6 140 time. Like, I think there's a chance that they use him to kind of close out games. I'm worried they could use him in some passing down situations where they're not designing a target to the running back. That's still a problem because Achane got plenty of dump offs, but I think there's a lot of plays that they ran last season. It was kind of that like, again, I think they thought it was going to be a cheat code play where Achane kind of just like, leaks out of the backfield to the side. They design a ton of stuff downfield, across the field, and they kind of move everyone else over to the other side, and they chuck it across to Achane. I think they thought they were going to get a ton of 20-plus yard plays from that play, and it just didn't work. It just over and over and over again, they were gaining like 5 to 7 yards. It just was not creating explosives. If they go away from that level of offense, really utilize Tyreek Hill, really utilize Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, and potentially some of these times they bring Ollie Gordon in there, who again is a brick wall. Like in pass protection, he's going to be unbelievable. You're not going to use him in the receiving game. He can, catch a dump off like pretty much everyone can. But in terms of pass protection, he can be amazing. And so if they look at that and say, okay, instead of having Achane leak out sometimes, again, sometimes we're going to have plays where we want to have that extra offensive lineman basically in here in pass protection and really get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle downfield going across the field. I think that's a possibility. And because that exists, along with, again, the chance that they just utilize Ollie Gordon as a goal line back, the chance that maybe late in games they use him to kill clock when they're winning, none of that was occurring. And if any of that starts to happen, it really limits the upside of Achane. Again, I see the obvious upside here, but I do think the Dolphins expected more explosiveness from Achane last season. And my worry is that they just scale back his usage to keep him fresh. And while that might sound good, when you're not on the field, you're not scoring fantasy points. And when you're bad as a goal line back and the team drafts a bowling ball in the NFL draft, you should be a little worried about your touchdown ceiling as well. So to me, early mid-second round, I would just rather take someone to feel a little bit more confident in, especially in a half PPR format. Another running back, early rounds, year 2, 3, that I haven't really been drafting is Chase Brown. Early third round pick right now, and obviously coming off an incredible season after just 58 touches as a rookie, explodes in year 2, 1,350 yards, 11 touchdowns on 283 touches. And what really made him a league winner is that so much of that production happened in the second half of last season. First 8 weeks, Zach Moss fully healthy. Zach Moss averages 12 touches per game, exact same amount as Chase Brown. And Moss actually played 62% of the offensive snaps to only 38% for Chase Brown. But then we see Zach Moss get injured. From week 9 on, Chase Brown played 82% of the offensive snaps. That was third among all running backs, averaged 21.1 expected fantasy points per game. That was first among all running backs. So he went from playing 39% of the snaps when Moss was healthy to being the single most featured running back in the NFL from week 9 on. My worry is that he was awesome in fantasy and expected fantasy points and usage. He was not awesome in terms of efficiency. 4.2 yards per carry over that time. That's below average. He was first in expected fantasy points per game by a good margin, but was sixth in actual fantasy points per game. And you know, teams don't care about fantasy points, obviously, but in terms of like efficiency, right? They want that. They want efficiency. And so given the usage he was getting, he should have been scoring a ton of fantasy points, which means receptions and yardage and touchdowns, which teams want. But he wasn't at as high of a rate as you would expect on average. Again, my worry is more that Brown was awesome in fantasy, but he provided fairly mediocre efficiency numbers, especially given the offense that he was on. So with the team bringing back Zach Moss this season, drafting Taj Brooks, it's fair to question if Brown will even be close to as featured as he was over the second half of last year. I don't want to have to worry about that in the early third round, because if he's not and they start to mix in other running backs more than expected, his value will drop quickly. Again, not something I want to worry about in the third round. I also find that I just like my team a lot more this season in particular when I only draft one running back through round 3. In the vast majority of the time so far, I've already had a running back. Like most of the time, I have a running back in round 1 or round 2, and I just don't like my teams that much when I have 2 running backs through the first 3 rounds. There's so many good running backs in the middle rounds that I want to have 2 wide receivers through the first 3 rounds. And if I already have one in round 1 or 2, it means that I would just rather go with a wide receiver over Chase Brown in that range. Moving a little later in drafts. Haven't been drafting a lot of Tyrone Tracy Jr. coming off the board at the round 7-8 turn. I have him as more of a 9th round pick, but it's just someone I'm probably going to be avoiding this season. And I have him at the top of a fairly clear teardrop in my eyes. And you never really want to be the first to take the first player in a tier of any position. This one really just comes down to your take on Cam Skattebo. Like, I know a lot of people think Cam Skattebo is trash. If that is you, enjoy the discount on Tyrone Tracy Jr. because if Tyrone Tracy Jr. retains his role from last season, he's going to end up being a really, really good pick where he's being drafted. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Cam is the best passing down back, the best pass specialist in this draft class, which is saying a lot in such a stacked draft class. But has the side, has the early down ability as well to not be a scat back. So I don't want you to think that Cam is like 190 pounds in the receiving game. He's like over 215, but just an absolute monster in the receiving game that can also get it done on early downs. I know Tracy Jr., it was a converted wide receiver, but that narrative gets played up way too much. He averaged 10.6 yards per reception in college. That's not amazing. 5 total receiving touchdowns in college. Obviously not that amazing when he played for as many years as he did. He had more than 19 receiving yards per game once in college. It was back in 2019. So I don't want people to think like, oh, converted wide receiver, he was having like 100 receptions a year and then converted to running back. It's like he had 1 year over 19 receiving yards per game and 5 total receiving touchdowns. He was not some amazing wide receiver in college. And then you look last season, 7.5 yards per reception, 71.4% catch rate. Those are mediocre numbers. That's very replaceable. I don't want this to come across like he's a bad running back because he's not. But Cam Skattebo is objectively a better passing down back than Tyrone Tracy Jr. And it would shock me if Cam did not win that job at some point. It doesn't necessarily have to happen right in week 1, but pretty early in the season, I'm very confident Cam's going to be the passing down back. And on a team that isn't good and is going to be down a lot, that's going to have, a decent amount more value. Obviously, neither one of these running backs is going to be top 7, right? Like the Giants are not going to produce a top 7 running back, but it really hurts the value really because of that, because the entire pie in New York is not going to be that amazing when you take Tracy Jr. and you just slice off a bunch of the receiving work. And you have a running back in Cam that can easily be a red zone back, can easily stay on the field in the red zone, can easily take some work on early downs. That's going to hurt. Tracy Jr. also only had 4 of the team's 16 goal line carries last season. Cam's a bigger back. He can take that role. And we don't even know, like Tracy Jr. didn't even have the role last season, so we don't know if he's going to have it this season. I guess I just don't see the upside at that spot. I think there's a very real chance that he's the second most valuable running back on the Giants and, goes in a range where you just missed some really solid running backs. Like he is going right after Harvey, Henderson, Pollard, Swift, Judkins, Pacheco, Caleb Johnson, and Brian Robinson Jr. Maybe you don't love that entire list. I don't love that entire list, but a ton of those running backs are clearly better than Tracy Jr. and come with a lot fewer unknowns as well. And so by taking Tracy Jr. just after them, you're locking in way worse value than the other people in your draft, and you never want to be doing that. 4th running back we'll talk about today is Roschon Johnson. I think I might be behind ADP on Roschon more than potentially any other player, but definitely any other running back. More than 2 rounds behind ADP on him. I feel pretty good about that. To this point in his really football career, but especially NFL career, he has not shown us anything that indicates he's going to have a breakout. And again, it's really his football career. Like even going back to college, what has he shown us that indicates he's going to break out? In 4 years of college, he had 11.2, 8.8, 8.8, and 8.2 touches per game with low levels of efficiency on those touches. The excuse then was that for those last 3 years, he was playing behind Bijan Robinson, so he had no chance of breaking out. Okay, fine. More of a speculative. It's more of an excuse being like, well, maybe he's good, but we don't know yet. It's not saying he's definitely good. It's saying maybe, but we don't know. Then as a rookie, he played behind Khalil Herbert, behind Donta Foreman. He earned only 7.6 touches per game. Last season, played behind DeAndre Swift, earned 5 touches per game, averaged 2.7 yards per carry. I'm sorry, but when are we going to stop making excuses for Roschon Johnson? Either the Bears don't trade for a running back, don't sign another running back, and he backs up DeAndre Swift, or they do and he's the running back 3. And as far as contingent upside, saying okay, Nick, well, what if Swift gets hurt? Isn't Roschon the number 1? I think if DeAndre Swift, tore his ACL, tore his MCL, suffered a long-term injury, that they would not just throw Roschon in there as a featured running back. I think they would trade for someone. I think they'd sign someone, like someone else is joining the team if that were to occur. I just cannot get on board with a roughly 13th round ADP, which is rising. He's a very trendy sleeper right now just because of the offense and because people think maybe someday he'll be good. He has not shown us anything in his football career to indicate that he is. He does not earn touches. He is not efficient with those touches. So I do not see why it would happen this season. Final player on the list is Braelon Allen, coming off the board as the running back 50. Also just not a player that I want to be drafting. I took him like once out of 30 drafts, and it was a mistake when I did so. Breece Hall is clearly a better running back, so he's just a handcuff. But I'm not even sure he's going to win that job. And if he does, what do we really think his ceiling is? Like, he averaged 3.6 yards per carry as a rookie, a pathetically low 1.1% explosive run rate. That was second to last behind only Gus Edwards among running backs with at least 90 rush attempts. He was, by any metric, their least efficient running back last season, both as a pure runner and as a receiver out of the backfield. I think there's a chance that Breece Hall's featured this season, and that even if he does get hurt, that Isaiah Davis has a solid chance of being the most valuable running back even in that scenario. Davis didn't get a ton of touches last season, but on a per touch basis, he was better at everything. He was more explosive, more yards before and after contact. He was stuffed at a lower rate. He had more efficiency in the receiving game. Like, literally any metric, any advanced metric you want to look at, he was better. And it's not like, Braelon Allen was a second round pick and Isaiah Davis went undrafted. Braelon Allen was a fourth round pick, and then Isaiah Davis was a fifth round pick last season. Like, they went not that far away from each other. So even from the team viewing it before the season, it wasn't all that different. And then we saw during the season, Isaiah Davis was a more efficient and better running back than Braelon Allen. So to me, just the guideline I would have when drafting a handcuff, because you can say, oh, well, Nick is just a handcuff, right? Who cares? No, I care, because when you're drafting a handcuff, you want to do it when you know the running back you're drafting will actually be a fantasy starter if the number one goes down. Because if you don't even think that's going to happen, or you don't think there's a strong chance that happens, why are they on your roster? Like, why are they taking up a roster spot when there are running backs we feel pretty good about actually being fantasy starters if the starter goes down? To draft someone who we're not even sure we'd want to play if there's an injury, it's like you're just wasting a roster spot at that point. And I know maybe it's fine wasting a roster spot this late, but I don't want to be doing that. And so with Allen, I just have no confidence we're actually going to use him if Breece Hall gets hurt. And you would absolutely need a Breece Hall injury for that to even happen. Feels like a wasted spot. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pass on him. And he also, like, people really like him as a trendy sleeper. He goes earlier than you would think in a lot of drafts. So that'll do it for this one. If you want to see where I have every single player ranked, you can do that on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Those rankings are updated every single day. And if you think you can come up with a better fade list than this, prove it. We're having a competition this season to see who can make the best must draft, sleeper, and fade list. It's free to enter. Just download my app, link in the description box down below for that. Fill out your sleeper lists, your fade lists, your must draft list on your profile page. Edit those as much as you want until week 1, but I will lock them at that point, and then we'll see how you stack up against me and the rest of the community this season. All right, if you're still here, please leave a like. It's greatly appreciated. I'll see you all tomorrow to talk about some polarizing players in drafts.